What's up guys, welcome back to another Black Desert Online video. So today's video we're going to be looking at a guide on how to do the tribute wagon because it's been brought to my attention. A lot of people don't really understand it or what it is or even how to make it efficient. So I want to talk a little bit about the tribute wagon. In the background you'll see me do the tribute wagon so you can sort of observe how it's done, at least the Serendio one. So there's two tribute wagons. They leave 2 hours before the siege every Saturday, and they leave from Velia on Balanos 1 and Heidel on Serendio 1. So each wagon will leave simultaneously 2 hours before the siege, and they will travel along a planned route towards Calfian City. Now once they reach Calfian City, there's no longer an opportunity to get money. Effectively, the tribute wagon is a money pinata. You hit the wagon and it can drop loot for you, in which case you want your pets to pick that up. The loot is on, well, usually it's 5 million. Sometimes it seems to be a different amount. I'm not entirely sure what dictates whether it's 5 million or a different amount. But regardless, it's very, very, very good money. Now, how much money you make from it entirely depends on how efficient you are at doing the wagon. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to be most effective doing the wagon. Now, this isn't specifically a ranger guide, but I will touch upon what ranger can do to make it a more efficient experience. Now, it's important with the wagon to understand the mechanics of the wagon, how it works, and things like that. So effectively, when you hit the wagon, that's what sort of immediately flags you. Now, it's not a karma issue. You don't have to worry about anything like that. But as soon as you're flagged, everybody else can hit you. Now, if you haven't hit the wagon yet and other people are flagged around you, they cannot hit you. So you're safe until you yourself hit the wagon. Then it sort of basically enters you for a period of time into a flagged mode where you can be hit by other players. So it's basically very, very dangerous. In other words, there's a lot of players, there's a lot of lag, so you want to make sure your settings are quite low, make sure player effects are off and things like that. So it's important to also remember that when you do hit the wagon, you want to be able to collect your loot. So dying is not necessarily a good thing if you hit the wagon then die before you can collect your loot. Now, of course, you want your pets out, preferably on agile. If you have tier 4 pets, that's the best because they have a longer range of collection, I believe, than tier 3, but that's not that important. But it does help a little bit. Like I said, every little bit of efficiency helps here. But before you do the wagon, you really need to make sure you have enough weight limit to collect 5 million. So that's the number one important thing we need to find. I guess it's in terms of whether you can pick it up off the ground or not, depends on how much over 100% it allows you. I think you can get past 100%, but I think it's not that much further past it. For example, if you were to pick up 5 million from your silver, from your bank, it might put you at 134% overweight, but you can't do that if you're looting from the wagon. So you do have to be very, very careful in that regard. So make sure that your weight limit is quite high. Now, of course, in this scenario, pay to win weight is almost vital to do the wagon. Now, if you are able to get your weight to a point where you can pick up 10 million, this is going to be the best thing for you. So there are ways to increase your weight limit, so you might want to look at that. This can be weight limit crystals. There's lots of gems that give weight limit. Carbonellus, for example. I believe History gives weight limit. So there's lots of those you can look at. On top of that, there's also accessories. Now, the most important and kind of expensive investment here into the wagon, if you're going to buy it specifically for this, although it does have life skill attributes as well, is the Manus Golden Coral Belt. Now, it gives 100 weight limit on its base upgrade. If you upgrade it again, it increases even further. So yeah, it's a ton of weight. I think it increases by 100 LT every time you upgrade this Manus Golden Coral Belt. Now, they're very expensive, but if you were to upgrade them, each upgrade I think gives you 100. So like Pry would be 200, Duo would be 300. This is an enormous amount of weight and would allow you at one time to pick up 10 million. Now, if you could pick up 10 million at a time without returning to town, that is like the optimum. So the other things you might want to consider as well is you want a fast horse. Now, it's also important that you don't allow your horse to die. Now, while you're watching me do the Serendio wagon, you'll notice that I make sure my horse is far enough away from other players, but close enough to summon. Obviously, it's also important to have a horse whistle, usually. but you do not want, if your horse dies and you get overweight, it's GG. You're just going to be like the slowest dude running along, you know. That's the last thing you want. So make sure your horse doesn't die. Your horse is your lifeblood here, because every time you loot the wagon and you get overweight, you won't be able to loot the wagon again if you're overweight. So you have to make sure you take the 5 million or even 10 million if you have a lot of weight limit back to either Heidel or to Glish in the Serendia wagon, although also Kaplan as well. Like the Serendia one's a bit different. You can do like initial looting at Heidel, and then you take it to Glish, and then you can even take it to Kaplan along its route. So there are actually 3 stages, whereas with the Balanos one, generally you just have to go between initially Velia and then Olvia. So basically what you have to do is you loot the wagon, and then you have to take the money back towards the city and deposit it and get back as fast as possible, which is why a fast horse is very important, but also make sure that your horse doesn't die. So these are the most important things you have to keep in mind. Don't overweight yourself with pots. You know, if you're going to be bringing the money back, you only should need about 20 to 30 pots. So do not make yourself too overweight with pots, because remember, pots weigh a lot. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. Now, in terms of other stuff that can help you, DP gear is very good. Obviously, you know, you don't want to die, preferably. So there are lots of different ways you can improve in this regard as well. For example, if you don't have a protection alchemy stone, which can help, you can use the guardian spirit stones that drop from Chemisylvia. You can just buy them or drop one yourself. If you have a destruction stone but not a protection stone, that will help as well. And there's lots of little things that you can do to optimize the way you go, and then you'll get a route. Now, the final thing in terms of route that I would probably say is, let's say, for example, you're doing the Balanos wagon, and the wagon is heading towards Olvia. Now, you're halfway between Olvia and Velia when you loot the wagon. Now, do you go back or do you go forward? Now, the best thing to do in that case is to go forward, to go to Olvia. And the reason for that is obviously the wagon is going to be traveling that way. So by the time you get to Olvia and then come back to find the new wagon's new position, it'll be much further along. So that's why you would want to go forward and not backward in that particular case. So yeah, the wagon is super good money. You can earn upwards of even 100 million if you have enough weight limit. Yeah, I guess if you had a ton of maids as well, you could just use the maids. The maids can only carry 500,000 silver, so you'd have to have a ton of maids. I have 4 storage maids, so once I can, or at least one time within that 20 minutes, I can actually, you know, put money away with the maids, and I can have, like, I don't know, 3 million or whatever on me at the time instead of the 5 million I might have had if I had looted the wagon. And so as a result, because I've only got 3 million, I actually can loot the wagon one more time. So that's another thing you could do if you had enough maids to do that. And that's another thing you can keep in mind as well. Now, as a ranger, I find the best thing to do is just use the bow skills. Blasting Gust and Shotgun basically are a good combo against the wagon. So that's generally what I try to do. If you try to do too many of the sword skills, you're just going to get CC'd. It's like a siege, it's very difficult to keep yourself from being CC'd if you're in close combat with other people. But most people focus on the wagon. Now, there are some people that want to watch the world burn. They don't want to loot the wagon, they don't want to hit the wagon. They believe that it's super fun PvP to attack people that can't retaliate and also are overweight. So you want to be careful about these kind of people as well. Lots of annoying frustration situations where I've had someone that's chased me, not a war target, just I was flagged because I hit the wagon and they weren't flagged because they didn't hit the wagon. I was overweight and they thought it was a really fun PvP experience to chase someone down. So yeah, some people like this exist. I guess the final thing worth noting about the wagon is that occasionally the defenders of the Calfian territory, those that own the territory, may actually try to defend the wagon. It's rare, but it can sometimes happen. So you just want to keep that in mind as well. So whoever owns the territory may want to actually defend the wagon itself. So that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, ultimately, it's a huge amount of money. It's free money. Like I said, it's just a money pinata. There's really no reason not to do it. So yeah, give it a go if you haven't already, and keep the things in mind and that I said. Make sure you can loot the wagon successfully. You need to have a ton of weight limit. If you don't have a ton of weight limit, it's going to be a problem for you. I think the final thing worth mentioning now, that I almost forgot, was that sometimes the wagon does desync. So if you look like you're hitting the wagon and you're not getting flagged, you know the wagon is desynced. In order to avoid that, you can either escape back to a node or do something like that. I mean, I guess you can try and kill yourself by hitting the wagon like either side. Sometimes when the wagon desyncs, you just try to hit where you roughly think the wagon might be, in front or behind its current visual position. That can be really annoying, but you might want to keep that in mind. The wagon can desync. So if you feel like you're hitting the wagon but nothing's happening and you're not getting flagged, then you know for sure the wagon is desynced. So you need to, reload basically. So you can use the escape or something like that, or try and die. Either one of those will function. If you just flag yourself for PvP and hit someone, then that'll work as well, I think, and allow yourself to die. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Keep your weight limit high, your horse is alive, and enjoy getting lots of free money.